She was calmly cleaning her rifle, every motion steady, every piece glinting under harsh light. Around her, the armory buzzed with cruel laughter, soldiers sneering, spitting that she was nothing but dead weight. Just a girl with a toy. One jeered, another scoffed. Give her a kitchen, not a rifle. Then silence. Bootsteps cut through the noise. A special forces sniper, a living legend, stopped in front of her. His stare pinned her in place. His words shattered the air. Can you hit 3,912 meters? Almost 4 kilometers. An impossible shot. The laughter vanished. The challenge cut the room in half. This is where ridicule turns to war. You're watching VeteranBiker. Comment where you're from. Hit subscribe, because the shot ahead won't just break records. It rewrites destiny. Let's check in. 1 for first-time viewer. 2 if you've seen a few. 3 if you never miss. Contact front. They're everywhere. Move, move. The shout ripped through Kelly Cross's headset as dirt exploded around her face. She hit the ground, rifle clutched tight, ears ringing with the hammering rhythm of machine guns. Tracers sliced through the air in violent arcs, sparks leaping from rock as the ambush closed in. Cross, cover left, someone yelled. Kelly rolled to her side, eyes behind her scope. The ridgeline above was crawling with fighters, their silhouettes darting against the sun. Muzzles flashed, echoing laughter tumbling down with the bullets. The SEAL fire team was pinned in the open, boxed in on 3 sides, the cliff edge yawning behind them like a grave. A young operator scrambled beside her, blood streaking his cheek. No air support, he panted, voice breaking. They said 20 minutes. We won't last 2. Kelly bit back the surge of fear. Panic solved nothing. She centered her scope, searching for weaknesses in the kill box, but the distance was brutal. Too far, too many firing angles. The radio crackled. Echo actual. Hold your position. Not the QRF, not their command. The voice was gravel, calm, deliberate, not frantic like the men around her, almost steady, unnervingly steady. The SEAL with the handset frowned. Identify yourself. No answer, just static. Then the same voice adjust. Shift 5 degrees south. Do it now, before anyone could question. A shot rang out. It wasn't theirs. On the ridge, an enemy gunner dropped as if the mountain itself had punched him. 7 seconds later, another figure crumpled, his rifle clattering into dust. Kelly froze. The shots weren't close. The sound came a half-beat late, the delay of impossible distance. Whoever was firing wasn't part of their team. Jesus, Torres muttered, ducking as a burst of fire shredded the dirt near his helmet. Where the hell did that come from? Kelly scanned the far horizon through her optic. For a second she thought it was glare, a trick of heat shimmer. Then she caught it. A glint of glass far beyond the ridges, a prone shape nearly invisible against the rock. The radio hissed again. Move now! I'm clearing your path! Bullets cracked like whips as fighters on the ridge screamed in alarm, their dominance unraveling. Each time one shifted to fire, another long-distance shot tore him down. The rhythm was surgical, patient, the work of someone who didn't miss. Kelly's hands moved automatically, covering her team with suppressive fire as they dragged the wounded toward better cover. Still, her thoughts spun. That voice, that cadence, the words he had used. Listen, don't fight the wind, her father's words. Her stomach twisted. The battlefield around her blurred into fragments. Screams, bursts of gunfire, the crack of far-off thunder as enemy after enemy collapsed. Dust choked the air, mixing with the metallic tang of sweat and blood. Her muscles burned as she fired, shifted, reloaded, fired again. But her mind kept circling back to that radio. Whoever was out there was rewriting the fight. By the time the chaos thinned, the enemy formation was fractured. Their jeers had vanished, replaced by frantic shouting. Some scrambled deeper into cover, others sprayed bullets wildly. The fire superiority was gone. "Go! Go now!" the SEAL leader bellowed, seizing the chance. They surged toward the canyon mouth, hauling their casualties. Kelly stayed last, rifle steady, eyes on the ridge. Each hostile who dared expose himself fell silent under a crack that came from the far horizon. When she finally pulled back, lungs burning, she allowed herself a glance at the distance. Nothing but sun and dust. The shape she thought she'd seen was gone, erased as if it had never been there. Then the radio clicked once more. Cross. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't Echo Actual, it wasn't a call sign, it was her name. "You hear me?" The voice continued, calm as ever. "Your father would be proud. The transmission cut." Static swallowed the channel. Kelly staggered, the world tilting around her. Her father's voice had been gone for 15 years, silenced by what they'd called a hunting accident. But this stranger, this phantom sniper, had spoken as though he knew him, as though the grave was no barrier at all. "Cross! Move!" Briggs shouted, hauling her by the arm. She stumbled into stride, boots pounding across stone as the team slipped into the canyon. The ambush shattered behind them. Her muscles ached, her skin stung from grit, but the real weight was lodged inside her chest. The voice, the impossible shots, the echo of her father's words. Nothing about today had been coincidence. And as the dust storm swallowed their retreat, Kelly understood that the fight was no longer just about survival. Someone had reached across distance, across time, to drag her into a war she hadn't chosen, and there would be no turning back. The air inside the armory was cooler than the desert, but no less heavy. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting a pale light across racks of precision rifles and pistols, rows of optics gleaming like watchful eyes. Kelly Cross sat alone at the far end, sleeves rolled up, her attention fixed on the rifle laid out in pieces before her. The rhythm of cleaning was a discipline she never abandoned. Disassemble, inspect, oil, reassemble. Every step an act of respect for the tool that extended her will across distance. It was also a shield, a way to shut out the noise of others. But today, the noise came looking for her. The door banged open, and a voice, too loud, too performative, cut through the quiet. "Well, well, look what we've got here." Little Miss Cross, polishing steel like it's a beauty pageant. Robert Kane strode in with 3 other instructors trailing behind him, their laughter rehearsed, their eyes waiting for cues from the man they treated like a ringmaster. Kane was taller than most, shoulders broad under his pressed uniform, a scar on his jawline he never stopped mentioning as a gift from some classified operation. Kelly kept her eyes on the bolt she was examining, rotating it slowly under the light. The faint smear of carbon caught her attention, more important than the swagger filling the room. "Not even going to acknowledge your superior, officer?" Kane asked, stepping closer. His boots clicked against the concrete floor. "Or do you think that staring at a hunk of metal makes you better than the rest of us?" Kelly slid the clean bolt back onto the mat. Her voice was steady. "I'm in the middle of maintenance, Colonel. Did you need something?" His grin widened, but his eyes hardened. "Just a professional observation. You've been coasting here as if your tidy record on paper makes you special. But this is the real world, Cross. It's not just math problems and pulling a trigger. It's crawling through mud, carrying weight until your spine screams, waiting days for a single shot. And when the moment comes, only the strongest can deliver." The men behind him chuckled. Kane leaned one hand on the workbench, deliberately invading her space. "Tell me, Cross, what's the farthest you've ever managed in the field? And don't say a training range, I mean combat." Kelly met his gaze. Her face was calm, but her eyes sharpened like a drawn blade. 1,700 meters. Helmand Province, 2010. For a fraction of a second, surprise flickered across his features. Then he masked it with disdain. Impressive for a woman. The words landed like a slap in the silence that followed. Kelly's knuckles whitened against the rag in her hand. She didn't rise to the bait, not with words, but Kane wanted a scene, and silence gave him one too. He straightened, turning to his audience. "Gentlemen, you know why all the records at the edge of possibility belong to men? Because women simply don't have what it takes. Biology, psychology, it's not opinion, it's fact." A low murmur rippled among the onlookers, half uneasy, half complicit. Kelly's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, facts once said the 4-minute mile was impossible until it wasn't." A smirk tugged at his mouth. "Cute analogy, but warfare isn't track and field. Lives hang on the line, and I wouldn't trust a female sniper with a shot past 1,000 in combat conditions. Too much stress, too much pressure." His voice rose, filling the armory so every soldier and instructor within earshot could hear. "I'll even put my paycheck on it. You couldn't hit a target at 2 kilometers, not even with perfect weather and unlimited time." The challenge hung like smoke. People stopped what they were doing. A circle of silence formed around the confrontation. Kelly tightened a screw on the receiver, the click sharp and final. Her breathing was measured, her pulse steady. Before she could speak, another voice entered the room, rough, gravelly, tinged with age, but carrying authority that silenced everyone. "What about 3009-112? Heads turned. The doorway framed a figure who looked as though he had walked out of another era. Alex Ward, 62. A legend whispered in corridors, but seldom seen. His frame was lean, wiry, built on decades of practice rather than gym vanity. Lines scored his face, not weakness but history written in skin. His blue eyes cut through the room like searchlights. The room stilled. Kane straightened automatically, his voice dropping into forced respect. "Master Sergeant Ward, we weren't expecting you until next week." Ward ignored him. His gaze settled on Kelly, studying her without judgment, without pity, just assessment. "I asked a question," he said. 3,912 meters. Could you hit it?" A ripple of disbelief swept the room. Everyone knew the longest confirmed sniper kill was shorter than that. The number wasn't just distance, it was myth, impossibility. Kelly felt the weight of every eye. Her instinct was to dissect the mathematics. Wind shear, drop, humidity, the 7 seconds of flight time in which anything could change. But Ward hadn't asked for theory. "With the right equipment and conditions, anything is possible," she said carefully. "That's not what I asked," Ward replied. "I asked if you could do it." The silence thickened. Bravado would make her a fool, modesty a coward. Finally, she said, "I don't know. No one does until they try." A ghost of a smile touched Ward's lips. Good answer. Kane's discomfort was palpable. He stepped forward, eager to reassert dominance. "With all due respect, Master Sergeant, we're discussing fantasies. The practical limit is half that distance. Beyond that, you're gambling with physics." Ward didn't even glance at him. "Meet me in the officers' mess in 1 hour," he said to Kelly. It wasn't a request. He turned and left, the room parting for him like water around stone. The silence he left behind was deafening. Kane's face flushed crimson. He leaned close to Kelly, his voice low and venomous. "Don't let that old man fill your head with nonsense. He's a relic. And if you think you can ride his coattails into something bigger, you're in for a rude awakening." Kelly looked him in the eye, unflinching. "What are you afraid of, Colonel?" For a heartbeat, genuine surprise cracked his mask. Then anger surged back, and he stormed out, his entourage scrambling behind. The murmurs in the room swelled, but Kelly no longer heard them. Her mind was already racing, calculating, imagining. 3,912, almost 4 kilometers. Could such a shot be real? The bolt slid home into her rifle with a satisfying click. The challenge had already become a promise. The briefing room was buried under concrete, a bunker disguised as a maintenance annex. No insignia, no windows, no markers that would betray its existence on any map. Kelly Cross sat in the front row, uniform neat but not ceremonial, boots still dusty from the desert. Around her, a half-dozen others waited, some instructors, some officers, and 2 civilians whose quiet demeanor marked them as scientists rather than soldiers. The screen flickered to life. A logo flashed briefly, then vanished. No official seals, just 3 words. Project Aegis Initiative. General Hawthorne himself delivered the introduction. His presence was clipped, economical, every word trimmed of excess. This program does not exist. Outside this room it has no name. Inside, you will call it Aegis. You are here because you either provide capability we require, or you are necessary to evaluate that capability. His eyes swept the room, pausing on Kelly for a fraction of a second longer than the others. Dr. Rachel Lynn, one of the civilians, stepped forward. A neat bun contained her black hair. Glasses caught the glow of the projector. Her voice was calm, analytical, her cadence betraying years of lecturing. You are about to handle technology that bends the edges of what long-range engagement has ever been. The system does not replace skill, it magnifies it. Without the right operator, it is nothing but steel and circuits. She tapped a control. The image changed to reveal a sleek rifle unlike any Kelly had seen. Angular, with an extended chassis, integrated sensors running the length of the barrel, and an optic that looked closer to a fighter jet HUD than a traditional scope. This is the Aegis system, Lynn continued. It integrates environmental data in real time, wind mapping, barometric pressure, temperature gradients. Micro-LiDAR provides trajectory prediction. The onboard processor adjusts dynamically, but it cannot make the judgment call. That is why an operator matters. That is why you are here. Kelly felt a shift in the room. Kane sat 3 rows back, arms folded, expressions sculpted into contempt. He didn't need to speak. His posture radiated skepticism. But Alex Ward, seated quietly at the far end, gave a faint nod as though daring her to absorb every word. The demonstration moved quickly. Afterward, they were escorted to the underground range. The space was cavernous, a tunnel carved through stone and reinforced with steel. Target silhouettes lined the far end, starting at familiar distances, 500, 1,000. But the rail system continued on into darkness until the targets vanished from sight. The faint rumble of industrial fans carried across the chamber, ready to conjure crosswinds at command. Captain Mason Briggs, lean and weather-beaten, took charge. You've all shot before. Forget what you know. The Aegis is not a replacement for fundamentals. It's an amplifier. If you don't respect the basics, it will betray you. He gestured to Kelly. You first. The rifle lay on the bench, matte finish absorbing the fluorescent light. Kelly approached with a steadiness that belied the thrum in her chest. Her fingers traced the unfamiliar contours, lighter than expected, balanced differently, the scope alive with subtle glimmers of data. She lay prone, aligning herself with the stock. Through the optic, the world transformed. Numbers overlaid reality. Wind speed vectors, humidity readouts, micro-adjustments dancing in the corner of her vision. It could have been overwhelming. Instead, she let the noise fade, filtering for what mattered. Target at 1000, Briggs called. She dialed nothing. The system auto-adjusted, but instinct whispered final tweaks. Breath in, half exhale, pressure on trigger. The crack of the shot echoed down the tunnel. A metallic ping returned half a heartbeat later. Center impact. Next, 1500. Again she settled, adjusted, fired. Direct hit, 2000. The mirage shimmered from heated air pumped by vents. She focused, recalling her father's maxim, patterns exist even in chaos. She caught the rhythm of the distortion, broke her shot through the cleanest gap. Steel sang. Briggs gave a grunt that might have been approval. Kane's voice cut in from the observation booth. Lucky streak. Wait until she misses. Ward didn't move. His expression betrayed nothing, but his gaze never left Kelly. The trial ended with applause muted by disbelief. Kelly rose from the bench, setting the weapon down with deliberate care. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, but inside something sharp and electric thrummed. The challenge was real. She was ready. They broke for debrief. Kelly collected her notes, mind already spinning with possibilities. As the others drifted toward the mess hall, she lingered by the equipment racks, checking the finer details of the Aegis system one more time. That's when the first shot rang out. Not from the range, from the corridor. The overhead lights flickered. The door at the far end slammed open, and a man in coveralls stumbled in. For a moment it looked like a technician panicked. Then the technician raised an automatic rifle. Chaos erupted. Rounds ripped through the range, ricocheting off steel. Briggs shouted commands, diving for cover. Ward pulled Kelly down behind the bench with the reflexes of decades. Another figure in identical work clothes entered, weapon barking. "They're inside!" someone screamed. Kelly's pulse roared, but her body moved with practiced clarity. She snatched the Aegis from the bench, not caring if protocol forbade live fire outside controlled conditions. She racked the bolt, pivoted, and dropped the first attacker with a controlled burst. The second advanced, firing wildly. Sparks showered from the wall, alarms blared. Kelly shifted, firing again, the recoil sharp against her shoulder. The man spun, collapsed, but there were more. Figures poured in through the breached door, faces obscured, weapons raised. They wore no insignia, only the stolen guise of maintenance staff. Whoever they were, they had infiltrated deep, waiting for the perfect moment. Kane's voice rang out, shrill with fury. "Secure the prototypes." The realization hit. This wasn't random. Someone wanted the Aegis. Ward barked, "Cross with me!" He shoved aside a fallen table, creating cover. Together, they advanced toward the exit, Kelly laying down precision fire. Every shot was deliberate, throats, joints, center mass. Her training burned through adrenaline into pure muscle memory. Lynn ducked behind a console, clutching a small case to her chest. She shouted something Kelly couldn't hear over the din. Briggs hauled her towards safety, returning fire with calm precision. The firefight raged in deafening bursts. Gunpowder choked the air, mixing with ozone from shorted circuits. Shadows stuttered across walls under flashing alarms. Kelly reloaded, chambering another round. Her breathing stayed steady, each inhale measured, each exhale syncing with her trigger squeeze. One intruder lunged from cover. She pivoted, shot slicing him down mid-stride. Ward covered her flank, his movement slower than hers but precise, every round counting. For an old man, he was terrifyingly effective. Finally, silence crept back in. Smoke drifted through the chamber. The floor was littered with bodies in coveralls, their weapons scattered. Kelly lowered her rifle, chest heaving. The Aegis felt heavier in her hands now, not just a prototype, but a beacon that had drawn death inside secure walls. Briggs's voice was grim as he surveyed the wreckage. This wasn't a raid, this was infiltration. Someone knew exactly where to strike. Ward's eyes locked on Kelly. Not accusing, not doubting, but sharp with recognition. The test was never just about targets, it was about survival. You passed. But Kelly barely heard him. Her gaze had fixed on one of the dead intruders. His collar had slipped during the fall, revealing a tattoo, an emblem she remembered from her father's old field notes. Directive Horizon. The chill that ran through her cut deeper than any bullet. The range still smelled of gunpowder and scorched wiring when the cleanup crews arrived. The bodies of the infiltrators had been bagged and removed, but traces lingered. The dark stains on concrete, the shattered glass, the acrid sting of burnt circuitry. Kelly Cross sat on a folding chair pushed against the wall, her rifle stripped down on the table beside her. She ran a cloth across the chamber, not out of necessity, but because her hands needed purpose. The faces of the dead flashed in her mind, not their features, those were hidden behind grime and disguises, but the tattoo she had seen on the last one, an insignia she had only glimpsed once before in a battered notebook left among her father's belongings. Back then it had meant nothing, now it burned like a brand across memory. Ward entered the chamber, moving with deliberate weight, as if age had taught him to conserve every step. He dropped into the chair beside her, joints creaking softly. "You saw it, didn't you?" Kelly didn't look up. "The mark," he nodded. "Directive Horizon. They've been a shadow since the Cold War. Half the people in uniform don't even believe they exist." Kelly's voice was flat. "My father had it in his notes." Ward exhaled slowly, studying her profile. "Then it's time you knew the truth." Before he could continue, General Hawthorne entered, his presence filling the room with a gravity no rank insignia could amplify. His uniform looked untouched by the chaos, his expression unreadable stone. Dr. Lin followed close behind, clutching a tablet, eyes flicking nervously between them. Hawthorne wasted no words. "The breach confirms our worst suspicion. Horizon has penetrated further than we calculated. The fact they targeted Aegis here means our timetable is collapsing." Ward gestured toward Kelly. She saw their symbol. Her father's notes mentioned it too. She deserves the full picture. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. He paced once across the floor, then stopped. "Very well. Sergeant Cross, what I'm about to share never leaves this room. Officially, it never happened." Kelly's fingers stilled against the rag. She forced herself to meet his eyes. "In the 80s, Hawthorne began when nuclear arsenals held the world hostage. A joint black program was conceived. Its name was Operation Iron Mirror. The premise was brutal but simple. Both East and West knew breakthroughs in weapons could destabilize the balance. To prevent that, a select cadre from each side trained together, undercover, embedded across borders. If one bloc advanced too far, the other would know. It was a firewall against annihilation. He paused, letting the words settle. "Your father, Jack Cross, was part of it." The rag slipped from Kelly's hand. She caught it against her thigh, grip tightening. "My father was Army Rangers. He left after Grenada. That's what the record says. The record says what it must," Hawthorne replied. "But after Grenada he was recruited. His cover as a hunting guide in Montana allowed him to travel unnoticed, liaise with his counterparts. He wasn't chasing elk, he was hunting men. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. Images of her father flooded back, the quiet discipline, the way he taught her to hold a rifle as if it were an extension of herself, the cryptic stories he never finished telling. Ward leaned forward, voice lower, and one of his closest counterparts was Dmitry Orlov. Kelly's head snapped up. The name had been whispered in briefing circles, spoken like a curse. Orlov, the Russian marksman with kills at distances that defied doctrine, thought long dead in Berlin. "Orlov wasn't your father's enemy," Ward continued. "They worked together in Iron Mirror, trusted each other more than most in their own governments. When the wall came down, both tried to walk away, but the initiative had other plans. Dr. Lin finally spoke, her voice taut with nerves. "We've confirmed Orlov is alive. Horizon has him, or he's aligned with them. If so, he may be training a new generation." Kelly's mouth went dry. "And my father?" Hawthorne's eyes softened only slightly. 15 years ago, he contacted his old handler. He claimed he had uncovered proof Horizon had gone rogue, pursuing weapons outside oversight. 2 weeks later, he was dead in what was ruled a hunting accident. The words dug into her like shrapnel. She saw it again, the hospital room, her father pale against white sheets, whispering through the fog of painkillers, "Promise me you'll be the best. Don't let them take it from you." She had thought it delirium. Now it sounded like prophecy. Kelly rose abruptly, pacing to the far wall, her pulse hammered, but not with panic, with clarity. Pieces she hadn't known existed snapped together, the mysterious voice in the desert, the mark on the infiltrator, the unanswered questions that haunted her childhood. She turned back. So my father wasn't a victim of chance, he was executed. Ward's gaze was steady, a long-range shot, no casing, signature Horizon. They wanted it to look like chance, but they left their fingerprints for those who knew how to see. Silence hung, broken only by the hum of the overhead lights. Lynn stepped forward, almost hesitantly. "There's more. Horizon's infiltration isn't just external. We believe they have sympathizers inside our own chain of command. Yesterday's breach was too precise to be coincidence. Someone fed them location, timing, access protocols, that someone could be in this building." Hawthorne's expression hardened. "Which is why we accelerate. Kelly, you asked who your father truly was. Now you know. The question is, what do you intend to do with it?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Find Orlov and finish what my father started." Ward allowed himself the faintest nod. Hawthorne's jaw flexed, but he didn't object. The debrief ended, but Kelly lingered after the others left. The armory beyond the glass walls looked the same, rifles in neat racks, optics polished, but nothing felt familiar anymore. Ward joined her at the threshold. "He never wanted this life for you, you know. Jack wanted you free of it." Kelly's voice was iron. "Then he shouldn't have taught me so well." Ward studied her for a long moment, then finally said, "Tomorrow, 0600, we'll push you further than you've ever gone, because if Horizon trained operators to 4 kilometers, we'll need someone who can break that ceiling." As they walked out, Kelly caught her reflection in the glass. For the first time, she saw not just the soldier she had been, but the shadow of her father's legacy woven into her stance. In that reflection, she recognized something else, a resolve that belonged entirely to her. Dawn over the desert compound was merciless. The first light turned the sand into sheets of fire, and the air shimmered with heat long before noon. Kelly Cross jogged across the training yard, sweat already running beneath her fatigues. Every muscle ached from the previous day, but Captain Mason Briggs wasn't interested in recovery. "Again!" he barked, his voice rasping like gravel. She dropped into the push-up position and obeyed. Beside her, 2 younger specialists collapsed in the dust, arms trembling. Briggs didn't so much as glance at them. His focus was on Kelly, watching for hesitation. Ward stood under the shade of the observation deck, arms folded. His silence was weightier than Briggs's commands. He didn't need to shout. His presence reminded Kelly of the impossible bar she had to clear. By the time Briggs allowed her to rise, her palms were raw, chest heaving. But even as she staggered toward the benches, he called out, "Gear up! Live range in 10, no reprieve. The underground shooting complex hummed with artificial wind. Industrial fans kicked up unpredictable currents. Heat projectors generated shimmering distortions, bending sightlines into rivers of glass. Briggs pointed to the firing line. Position 3, cross. She lay prone, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of the Aegis rifle against her shoulder. Through the optic, the data overlay sparked to life, wind vectors shifting like restless ghosts, humidity metrics crawling, barometric readings sliding. To the untrained eye, it was noise. To Kelly, it was a symphony she was still learning to conduct. "Target, 2,100 meters, Briggs called. She steadied her breathing, letting the numbers filter into instinct. The scope provided guidance, but her mind did the translation. She saw not just a steel silhouette, but the arc her bullet would carve through the shifting air. She squeezed the trigger. The report thundered. The round vanished into the shimmer. 3 seconds later, steel rang, dead center. Briggs's only acknowledgement was a grunt. Next, targets extended further, 2,500, 2,800. Each shot required recalculating, not just for distance, but for the sudden gusts whipped by the fans, the mirage's warping sightlines. Kelly adjusted, adapted, felt her pulse synchronize with the rifle's rhythm. But at 3,000 meters, her first round struck wide. Kane's voice carried from the observation booth above, dripping with triumph. And there it is. She folds at the edge. Kelly's jaw clenched. She cycled the bolt, inhaled slowly, exhaled halfway, and pressed again. This time the round kissed steel with a sharp ping. Ward's voice, quiet but cutting, drifted through the intercom. "Learn to listen. Don't fight what you can't control." Her father's words, repurposed in Ward's gravel tones, steadied her. Briggs escalated the scenario. Moving targets appeared at staggered ranges, sliding along tracks in unpredictable rhythms. "You have 30 seconds. 10 rounds. Go." The countdown ticked. Kelly's world narrowed to scope, breath, trigger. Each moving silhouette demanded a different equation: speed, lead, drift. She adjusted without hesitation, her shots finding home with mechanical precision. 10 targets, 10 metallic impacts, 26 seconds. Even Briggs allowed the faintest flicker of respect, but Kane wasn't finished. He stepped into the control booth, activating new settings. Vents roared, sending crosswinds screaming down the range. Heat lamps surged, creating violent mirages. The environment turned hostile in an instant. Briggs's brow furrowed. "Colonel, this wasn't scheduled." "Consider it unscheduled reality," Kane replied coolly. His eyes locked on Kelly. "Let's see if she's more than a range trick." Ward said nothing, but Kelly could feel his gaze pressing down like weight. Briggs relented. "Target 3,912 meters, 1 round. Declare your shot." The chamber fell silent. Even the fan's roar seemed muted. Kelly adjusted her position. Sweat rolled down her spine. Through the scope, the target was barely more than a speck blurred by heat distortion. The overlay data shifted constantly, unable to stabilize. She forced herself to slow, not to chase the fluctuations, but to feel the rhythm behind them. Patterns, always patterns. The wind spoke in pulses, the mirage bent in cycles. Her father's voice whispered in memory, "The wind isn't your enemy, it's a language. Hear it." Kelly closed her eyes briefly, inhaling. When she opened them, she made a minute adjustment, fractions of a degree that no computer would suggest. "Ready," she said. "Send it," Briggs replied. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The rifle bucked. The round vanished into the horizon. 1 heartbeat, 2, 3, 7 seconds stretched into eternity. Then, ping. Clear, solid, center strike. The room erupted. Technicians gasped. One of the specialists clapped a hand over his mouth. Briggs's face betrayed rare astonishment. Ward allowed himself a small nod. Exceptional. Kane's lips thinned. Fluke. Kelly lowered the rifle with deliberate calm. Though her pulse thundered, she didn't need to gloat. The steel had spoken. Briggs ended the session, but Kane lingered, his voice low enough only she could hear. "Don't get comfortable. Out there, the target shoots back." Kelly met his stare. "Then I'll just have to be faster." Outside, the desert wind howled against the bunker doors. Kelly stepped into the light, muscles sore, throat dry, but a new fire in her chest. The impossible had bent, if only once. She knew it wouldn't be the last time. The debrief room was windowless, its walls lined with dull metal that gave back no reflection. Kelly Cross sat stiffly in the chair, sweat still drying from the brutal training that had left her body sore, but her resolve sharper. Across from her, Dr. Rachel Lynn tapped nervously at a tablet, the glow lighting her face in pale tones. Rachel glanced toward the door twice before speaking. "Keep your voice low. I don't trust the microphones here." Kelly raised an eyebrow. "You think we're being monitored?" "I know we are." Rachel's voice trembled, not with fear but with anger. "But there are layers to it. Not everyone listening is on our side." She turned the tablet toward Kelly. The screen filled with schematics, not a rifle, not even battlefield hardware. Instead, it showed a satellite array orbiting above the Earth, sleek rods stored in bays like arrows waiting in a quiver. Kelly leaned closer, breath catching. "What is this?" "Project Helios," Rachel whispered. "The real program. Aegis is just the testbed. The weapon isn't the rifle. It's this." She pointed to the rods. Tungsten projectiles, dropped from orbit. No explosives needed. Pure kinetic impact. One strike can flatten a city block. The room seemed to shrink around Kelly. She had expected classified prototypes, maybe even drone integration. But this was planetary. Rachel swiped again, showing calculations. A rod falling from that height hits with the energy of a small nuke, but without radiation. No treaties broken, no fallout. It's the perfect deniable weapon. Kelly shook her head slowly. "You mean they're using us as the proof of concept?" "Exactly. The long-range shots, the impossible distances, their cover. A story to tell the oversight committees while Helios gets built in the dark." Kelly's chest tightened. "And Directive Horizon?" Rachel hesitated, then tapped another file. A list of names scrolled. Contractors, generals, politicians. Some were marked with encrypted annotations. They're not just watching, they're guiding it. Someone inside leaked the range schedule to the infiltrators. That's why they struck when they did. Kelly stared at the names. Half were familiar from briefings. The other half she had only heard whispered. But one detail stabbed her gut. Her father's handler's name was among them. Redacted but recognizable. Her voice was low. "My father died trying to stop this." Rachel met her gaze. "And now it's on us." The door hissed open before Kelly could reply. Robert Kane stepped inside, his presence filling the room like smoke. His eyes flicked to the tablet, then to Rachel. "Private conversation?" he asked, his tone smooth but edged. Rachel snapped the cover shut. "Just discussing system calibration?" Kane smiled thinly. "I'm sure." His gaze shifted to Kelly. "You did well today. Surprised even me. But don't confuse one lucky shot with mastery. Out there, things don't line up as neatly as steel silhouettes." Kelly didn't flinch. "Out there is where it matters. That's where I'll prove it again." Kane's grin faded. He leaned closer, his voice a murmur meant for her alone. "Careful, Cross. Ambition gets people killed." He straightened and left without waiting for response, the door sealing behind him with a hiss. Rachel exhaled, tension flooding out of her. He suspects. Kelly's mind spun. If Kane was Horizon's inside man, then every step they took was under scrutiny, yet confronting him outright was suicide. She pocketed the tablet. Rachel slid discreetly across the table. Then we move quietly, and when the chance comes, we move fast. Later that night, Kelly lay awake in the barracks, staring at the ceiling. The words replayed. Helios, orbital strikes, Horizon infiltration. Her father's voice echoed in memory. Don't let them take it from you. He had seen this coming. He had tried to warn them. Now it was her burden. Outside, the desert wind howled against steel shutters, carrying with it the promise of another storm. The desert night had passed into pale dawn when the convoy rolled out. 3 armored trucks and a supply jeep cut through the wasteland, their engines growling against the silence of the horizon. Kelly Cross sat in the rear vehicle beside Rachel Lynn, who cradled a reinforced case on her lap as if it were a child. Sam Torres rode shotgun, scanning the dunes through a dust-streaked window, while Captain Briggs drove with a stoic calm that belied the tension thrumming beneath his skin. Kelly rested the Aegis Rifle across her knees. Its matte frame gleamed faintly in the rising sun, a tool too advanced to belong in such a crude setting. Every bump in the road jarred her bones, but she kept her focus outward, eyes sweeping the endless expanse. No escort aircraft, no drones of their own, only 4 vehicles cutting a vulnerable path across an ocean of sand. Briggs broke the silence. Extraction point is 1 hour east. If we keep speed, we beat whatever else Horizon has planned. Rachel shifted, her voice tight. That's if they don't already know. Kelly said nothing. She kept her gaze on the ridgelines, the endless dunes that could conceal anything. The infiltration at the bunker had proven Horizon's reach. She couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on them now. The first sign came as a glint in the sky. Torres leaned forward, squinting. You see that? Kelly followed his finger. At first, it looked like the flash of sunlight off metal. Then the hum reached them, low, growing louder, a predatory buzz that set her teeth on edge. Contact, Kelly said. The convoy slowed, radios crackling with confusion. Briggs's knuckles whitened on the wheel, airborne, unfriendly. Brace. From the rising sun, a sleek shape cut through the sky, a UAV, sharp-nosed and armed, banking toward them. Its rotors whined with lethal precision. The first missile streaked downward. Out! Briggs roared. The convoy scattered. Trucks swerved, tires skidding across loose stone. The missile slammed into the sand 30 yards ahead, erupting in a geyser of dirt and fire that rocked the vehicles. Kelly was already moving. She threw the rear door open, hitting the ground hard, rolling to shield the rifle. Dust stung her lungs as she came up on one knee, scanning the sky. The UAV looped overhead, circling like a hawk. Its shadow skimmed across the desert floor. Torres cursed, hauling Rachel from the jeep. Briggs shouted coordinates into the comms, but no reinforcements answered. They were alone. Kelly dropped prone, setting the Aegis against a dune's slope. She snapped open the bipod, sighting upward. Through the optic, the sky became numbers, altitude, angle, trajectory. The drone moved fast, too fast for conventional doctrine. Another missile launched. She tracked it instinctively, hot hammering. It streaked toward the convoy, smoke trailing. Kelly fired. The round cut across impossible distance, colliding with the missile mid-air. A blossom of fire erupted above, raining shards of metal that hissed into the sand. Rachel gasped. Torres let out a half-laugh of disbelief. Briggs only shouted, "Reload! He's not done!" The UAV banked again, strafing with its cannon. Bullets stitched the ground, carving trenches through sand. One struck the jeep, igniting its engine in a roar of flame. Kelly gritted her teeth, adjusting, following the drone's arc. Each gust of wind threatened to spoil her aim. Each shimmer of heat bent the picture, but she forced herself into rhythm. Breath, trigger, follow-through. She squeezed. The crack of the shot barely registered before the UAV's fuselage jerked. Smoke bled from its wing. It staggered in the sky, struggling to stabilize, but it didn't fall. Instead, a second UAV appeared over the horizon, darker, faster. Rachel clutched the case tighter. Two of them? They'll overwhelm us. Kelly chambered another round. Not if I drop them first. Briggs swerved the truck to shield them as the second UAV lined up. Dust engulfed them, reducing visibility to a blur. Kelly pressed her eye to the scope, straining through the haze. The overlay flickered, struggling to compute. Her father's words echoed in her skull. Don't fight the wind. Feel it. She ignored the metrics, trusting instinct. The drone leveled, cannon barrels glowing. Kelly exhaled, squeezed, and sent her round, tearing through the void. For a moment, nothing. Then the UAV's nose exploded in flame. The drone spun violently, spiraling downward. It hit the desert with a thunderous crash, scattering sand for hundreds of yards. Cheers erupted from Torres, but they died quickly as the first UAV descended again, cannon roaring. Rounds tore into the lead truck, punching holes through armor. The vehicle swerved, tipped and rolled, throwing men into the dust. Kelly's stomach tightened as the drone dipped again, its belly flashing. She swung the Aegis into line, but the machine fired first. A missile tearing free, trailing a ribbon of fire straight at them. There was no chance to calculate vectors or trust the overlay. Instinct was all she had left, honed into muscle memory and sharpened by desperation. She pressed the trigger. The rifle cracked, the round screaming upward into the blazing sky. A heartbeat later, the missile erupted mid-air, a ball of fire that lit the desert in searing orange. The shockwave slammed her chest, grit stinging her face as fragments rained down like molten hail. The UAV jerked violently, engines coughing black smoke as it fought to claw altitude. Kelly didn't let it recover. She slammed the bolt forward, sighted again, and fired a second time. Her round struck home. The bullet ripped through its frame, severing systems in a spray of sparks. The drone convulsed, wings shuddering, then dropped like a stone. It hit the desert floor with a thunderous crash, disintegrating in a rolling fireball, twisted steel flung across the dunes. For a moment, everything stilled. The battlefield, so loud seconds before, fell into eerie quiet. Only the hiss of flames and the ragged groans of wounded men filled the air. Kelly forced herself upright. Her chest rose and fell in heavy bursts. Her ears rang with the echo of explosions, and her hands trembled, not from panic, but from the sheer magnitude of what she had just done. She had downed machines built to outmatch human reflexes, wielding a weapon the world still believed was fantasy. Captain Briggs staggered toward her, blood streaking down the side of his head. He clamped a hand on her shoulder, grip firm, voice raw. "You didn't just save us. You saved everyone here." A few feet away, Rachel Lynn hugged the steel case to her chest, her knuckles bone white. Sam Torres cursed as he dragged the injured clear of the smoking wreck, his boots slipping in the loose sand. Kelly lifted her gaze to the horizon. The sky had gone quiet again, but the emptiness felt deceptive, like the pause before another storm. Horizon had shown its hand. Drones in broad daylight, far from any battlefield. They wouldn't hesitate to escalate. She slung the Aegis across her back, the weapon's weight pressing into her shoulders like a vow. For days she had been fighting to stay alive, but now the truth settled heavy in her chest. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was war, and Kelly Cross had just fired its opening shot. The desert stretched on for hours after the wreckage cooled. The convoy reduced to half its strength. They drove in silence, engines coughing, tires dragging across sand too hot to touch. Kelly Cross sat in the back of the lone surviving truck, knuckles raw, uniforms streaked with soot. The Aegis Rifle leaned against her shoulder, heavy yet reassuring. Rachel Lynn clutched her case as if it were oxygen. Sam Torres's jaw worked silently, chewing down fear and anger, while Captain Briggs drove like a man possessed, eyes locked on the horizon. By dusk, the truck rolled into a canyon carved from ancient rock, its walls rising like red cathedrals. Briggs killed the engine. "This place was once a Soviet relay station," he muttered. "Horizon doesn't know we've mapped it. It'll buy us a night." They unloaded in silence. The facility was a ruin of steel and stone, antennas broken, walls cracked. Yet deep inside, the air was cooler, shadows deep enough to hide men and secrets alike. Kelly set the Aegis down gently, her fingers reluctant to release it. Rachel finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "We can't keep running. We need allies. We need someone who knows Horizon's structure." Her words hung in the dark, and then another voice answered, low, rough, accented, like gravel dragged across iron. "You already have one." Kelly spun, rifle up. Torres raised his weapon. Briggs stepped forward, blocking Rachel. A figure emerged from the deeper shadows, tall, gaunt, hair silver at the temples, eyes a shade of grey that seemed to pierce through stone. His gait was slow but steady, deliberate like a predator that never wasted energy. Kelly's breath caught. She knew that face from photographs, briefing slides, whispered legends. "Dmitry Orlov," she said. The man inclined his head, neither denying nor confirming. "So they told you the fairy tales," Briggs snarled. "You're supposed to be dead." Orlov's smile was thin. "Supposed to be. Yet here I stand." He stepped closer, his presence filling the ruin with quiet gravity. "Your father would have understood." The words hit Kelly like a blow. She steadied her grip on the rifle. "You knew my father." "Knew?" Orlov let the syllable linger. "We were brothers, forged in fire neither Moscow nor Washington would ever admit existed. Jack Cross was the finest marksman I ever fought beside. Smarter than most generals, braver than most fools." Kelly's pulse thudded in her ears. "Then why didn't you stop Horizon from killing him?" Orlov's expression flickered, something bitter cutting through. "Because Horizon was already inside both our governments. He tried to expose them, I tried to protect him, but I was one step too slow." Rachel's voice trembled. "You worked for them. Your file, my file is whatever they want you to believe," Orlov cut in. "Yes, I trained their men once, believed the lies about balance and peace, but Horizon doesn't want balance, they want control, and now they build their hammer in orbit, ready to drop fire on anyone who resists." Kelly lowered her rifle slightly, though mistrust churned inside her. His words aligned with her father's notes, with Rachel's revelations, yet trust was a currency too expensive to spend. Torres muttered, "How do we know you're not still their man?" Orlov's gaze hardened. "Because if I were, you'd all be dead already." The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Briggs finally said, "Then prove it. Help us reach the extraction." Orlov shook his head. "Extraction won't save you. Horizon will hunt you to the ends of the earth. The only way out is through." His eyes flicked to Kelly, just like your father understood. Kelly felt the weight of his stare, the echo of her father's teachings pressed into her bones. She wanted to believe him, needed to, but the crack of distrust gnawed at her. Before she could speak, the night split open, gunfire echoed from outside, sharp and organized, the canyon filled with the growl of engines, the scrape of boots. Headlights flared against the ruins' walls. Briggs cursed. They found us. Torres moved to the doorway, weapon ready. Kelly slammed a fresh magazine into the Aegis, adrenaline flooding her veins. Rachel clutched the case tighter, terror carving her face pale. And then he walked in. Robert Kane entered with the slow assurance of a man who believed the room already belonged to him. Black-clad operators flanked him on either side, their rifles raised and steady, forming a wall of steel and intent. His uniform was spotless, pressed to perfection, every medal gleaming, as if untouched by the grit and blood staining everyone else. His face was stone-carved, cold and severe, but his eyes glimmered with predatory triumph. "Well," Kane drawled, his voice carrying an almost theatrical ease, "isn't this a charming little gathering? Cross, Briggs, Torres, our runaway scientist, and—" His gaze slid toward the figure lingering in the shadows. His lips curled into a smirk. The ghost himself. Dmitry Orlov stepped forward, his frame half-lit by the failing overhead lights, his mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Still the lapdog," he murmured, his Russian accent sharpening the insult. "Still barking for masters who will throw you bones." Kane's smirk deepened, but he ignored the jab. With a casual flick of his wrist, he signaled his men. The operators spread out instantly, fanning across the ruin, muzzles sweeping until Kelly and her team were trapped in a crossfire web. Every breath in the room seemed to tighten with the sound of safeties clicking off. "Directive Horizon, thanks you," Kane announced smoothly, his tone equal parts mockery and command. "You've saved us a great deal of effort, retrieving prototypes, securing data, and unmasking the traitors among you. Now we simply collect what is owed." Rachel Lynn clutched the reinforced case closer to her chest, knuckles blanching. She stepped forward despite the rifles aimed at her, her voice trembling with fury more than fear. "You'll never use it. You'll scorch the world to ashes." Kane's grin widened, sharp and lupine. "Exactly," he whispered, then louder, "That's the idea." The words had barely left his lips when he drew his sidearm with frightening speed. No warning, no pause for intimidation. He raised the pistol and fired. The gunshot slammed through the chamber like thunder trapped in stone. Rachel's body jolted violently, the case slipping from her grasp and striking the ground with a hollow thud. She staggered once, eyes wide in shock before collapsing. Dust billowed around her as dark blood spread across the cracked concrete. Kelly's scream ripped free before she realized she'd moved, raw and jagged, echoing off the canyon walls. She dropped to her knees beside Rachel, hands trembling as they hovered helplessly over the wound. But one glance at the glassy eyes, the slack jaw, told her the truth. Rachel Lynn was already gone. Kane holstered his pistol with chilling indifference, his expression untouched by the act. "Loose ends," he said simply, as if swatting away an inconvenience rather than extinguishing a life. Briggs roared, rage propelling him forward, but before he could charge, Orlov's hand clamped down on his arm with surprising strength. "Not now," he hissed, voice low and urgent, dragging the captain back from certain death. The chamber reeked of cordite and fresh blood. The silence that followed was worse than the shot itself, thick, suffocating, filled only by the echo of what had been lost. Kelly's vision swam red. The Aegis felt alive in her hands, begging to fire, but Kane's men had every angle covered. A single move and Torres, Briggs, even Orlov would be riddled with bullets. Kane stepped closer, towering over Rachel's body. You want to avenge her, Cross? You'll get your chance. But first you're coming with us. Horizon has plans for you. Special ones, he motioned, and two operatives advanced. Kelly's grip tightened on the Aegis. Her heart screamed to pull the trigger, to end him here, but reason forced her still. She couldn't win, not yet. Orlov's eyes met hers, a silent message passing between them. Patience. Kane crouched, picking up Rachel's case. He ran a hand across its surface like a prize he'd earned. Such brilliance wasted on loyalty. At least now, her work will serve someone worthy. He straightened, turning his back on Kelly as if she were already chained. Secure them. The canyon filled with the hard mechanical chorus of safety snapping off. The sound was sharp and final, like 100 knives being unsheathed at once. Kelly's chest rose and fell in short bursts, every breath jagged. Fury coiled inside her like a spring wound to the breaking point. To her left, Sam Torres angled his weapon upward, not fully raising it but enough to show defiance. His eyes burned with reckless courage, daring Kane's men to test their aim. Across the room, Captain Briggs pressed his back to the stone wall, his posture tense, every line of muscle braced for the instant he could throw himself into a fight that looked unwinnable. Orlov stood with deceptive stillness, one hand dangling near the fold of his coat. Kelly caught the faintest twitch of his fingers, subtle but deliberate, and knew a weapon hid beneath the fabric. The air thickened, oppressive with the scent of oil, sweat, and fresh blood. For a single suspended heartbeat, the ruin became a powder keg. Every man in black, every rifle sight, every clenched jaw waited for the smallest motion to ignite it. In that fragile stillness, Kelly heard her father's voice as clearly as if he were beside her. The wind is not your enemy, it speaks. Listen to it, and you'll know when to act. So she listened and waited. The ruin had turned into a cage, its jagged walls holding them in as Kane's operators spread methodically across the floor. Their rifles tracked every movement, their uniforms blending into the stone shadows until they looked like predators carved from the canyon itself. The acrid reek of gunpowder hung heavy in the air, stinging her nostrils, mixing with the copper tang of blood. Rachel Lynne's body lay where it had fallen, limp, lifeless. The steel case she had clutched so tightly was now gripped in Kane's gloved hand, a prize that had cost her life. Kelly knelt over her fallen ally, the Aegis rifle resting heavy across her lap. Her body screamed to leap, to fire, to tear Kane apart where he stood. But instinct, sharpened by survival and training, held her still. One rash move would bring a dozen muzzles flashing, and they'd all be cut down in seconds. Kane strolled before them like a man pacing a stage, his voice smooth and dripping with pride. Directive Horizon thrives because we embrace what others deny. While fools chase treaties and illusions of peace, we prepare for the world as it truly is. Power isn't inherited, Cross. It belongs to those willing to wield it. Your father resisted. Look where that got him. Kelly's jaw locked so tight it ached. You murdered him. Kane tilted his head, pretending sympathy, though the sneer in his tone betrayed him. Not murder, Kelly. He simply chose the wrong side. As did poor Dr. Lynn. He rapped his knuckles on the case. But don't worry, her genius will serve us now. Orlov shifted, the grey of his eyes hard as stone. You're no visionary. You're a pawn dressing himself as a king. And Horizon? They will throw you away the moment you cease to be useful. Kane smirked, his confidence unshaken. Then I'll make certain that day never comes. He lifted one hand, a sharp gesture. Two operators broke formation and advanced on Kelly, rifles steady, intent on tearing the Aegis from her grip. Kelly's fingers tightened around the weapon, her pulse drumming in her ears. She forced her body to remain calm, every nerve screaming but her mind locked on control. Time stretched, seconds elongating until each breath felt like an eternity. And then she caught it, the barest flicker in Orlov's expression. His eyes met hers, unblinking, and the smallest nod passed between them. A signal. The storm was coming. The spark ignited. Orlov's hand blurred from his coat, a pistol flashing into the dim light. His first shot cracked like lightning, the report deafening in the confined space. The nearest operative dropped instantly, blood spraying the wall. At the same moment, Briggs launched himself at the second assailant, slamming shoulder first into the man's chest. They crashed into the wall, the rifle twisting sideways as they fought for control. Torres opened fire, muzzle blazing, his rounds cutting through the haze and forcing the other operators to dive for cover. Kelly rolled hard to her right, the Aegis snapping into her shoulder with practiced precision. The rifle thundered, its recoil slamming against her, and an operative across the ruin crumpled against the stone, weapon clattering from his grasp. Dust erupted into the air, choking vision. Muzzle flashes lit the haze in violent staccato, each burst echoing through the canyon like thunder trapped in stone. Bullets shrieked past, shattering rock, ripping sparks into the dark. The ruin that had been moments from suffocating silence now detonated into chaos. Kane moved like a predator, drawing his pistol and firing with ruthless precision. One round grazed Briggs's shoulder, spinning him against the wall. Another tore through Torres's leg, dropping him to the ground. Kelly crawled behind a crumbling pillar, breath ragged. Kane's voice rang above the gunfire. "You can't win, Cross. Even if you kill me, Horizon doesn't die. You'll only die tired." Her eyes locked on him through the dust. He moved confidently, certain of his superiority, but arrogance left him exposed. The Aegis pressed against her shoulder. She adjusted, tracking him as he barked orders, dragging Rachel's case toward the exit. The range was short by Aegis standards, barely 70 meters, but the chaos made it feel like 4 kilometers. She inhaled, feeling her father's words echo through her bones. The wind speaks. "Listen!" The dust cloud swirled. Kane paused, pistol raised, eyes narrowing toward her cover. Kelly moved. She rolled from the pillar, rifle steady, and fired. The shot ripped through the dust, striking Kane across the chest. He staggered, shock flashing across his face. His pistol clattered to the floor. He fell to one knee, breath rasping. Kelly advanced, chambering another round, her eyes locked on him. His grin flickered back, even through the blood. "Congratulations! You've only killed a man. The machine lives on." His hand twitched toward his belt. Kelly fired again. The second round slammed into him, snapping his body backward. He collapsed beside Rachel's case, blood pooling beneath him. The ruin fell into silence. Kelly stood frozen, rifle still raised, her heart pounding like a war drum. Kane lay motionless, eyes wide, the arrogance finally gone. Torres groaned, clutching his leg. Briggs pressed his wounded shoulder, gritting his teeth. Orlov rose slowly from behind cover, pistol still warm in his grip. He looked at Kane's body with something between satisfaction and regret. Kelly lowered the Aegis. Her chest heaved. The fight was over, but the war was not. She stepped to Kane's corpse, crouching beside him. The case still sat in his grip. She pried it loose, but as she did, a folded scrap of paper slipped from his inner pocket, stained with sweat and blood, its edges worn. Kelly unfolded it carefully. Lines sketched in her father's hand leapt from the page. Coordinates, a map marked with symbols she recognized from his old notebook. Hidden sites, more Horizon installations. Her throat tightened. It was proof her father had been fighting them until the end. Proof his death had been sacrifice, not accident. Orlov peered over her shoulder, his expression unreadable. "He left you the trail. Horizon isn't finished." Kelly closed the map, sliding it into her vest. She looked at Orlov. "Then neither am I." Outside, the desert wind howled through the canyon, carrying sand like ash over the dead. The sun burned low, casting the ruin in blood-red light. Kelly slung the Aegis across her back, her muscles aching, her body battered, but her resolve harder than stone. Her father's war was now her own. As they gathered the wounded and prepared to leave, Briggs asked, "Where do we go from here?" Kelly glanced east, where the horizon shimmered. "To the next mark, to wherever horizon hides." Orlov's grey eyes met hers. For the first time, she saw not just an ally of her father, but a man who would fight beside her now. The legacy of Jack Cross had not ended in the woods 15 years ago. It lived in her heartbeat, in the rifle on her shoulder, in the map pressed against her chest, and as long as she drew breath, Directive Horizon would never rest easy again. The dust had barely settled in the canyon when Kelly Cross stood over the wreckage of everything she had fought through. Kane was gone. Rachel was gone. The men she trusted were wounded but alive, and in her hand, folded into the sweat-stained pages her father once carried, lay a map that changed everything. It wasn't the end. It wasn't even close. It was the beginning of a new war. For days she had been the soldier others underestimated. The one mocked in the Armory, written off as a woman carrying a rifle she was never meant to hold. But in the silence after the gunfire, she was something else entirely. Kelly Cross had become proof. Proof that the impossible distance could be conquered. Proof that a single shot could alter the course of a battlefield. Proof that one person's will could fracture the designs of men who thought themselves untouchable. Yet her triumph came with cost. Rachel Lynne's blood still stained the canyon floor, a reminder that genius and loyalty had a price. Sam Torres limped from his wounds. Briggs carried scars that would mark him for life. And Orlov, the ghost from another age, had reappeared not as savior, but as a mirror of the compromises men make in shadows. Nothing was clean, nothing was heroic. It was survival, sacrifice, and truth torn into the open. Kelly's father had once told her, "The wind is not your enemy. Listen to it, and it will tell you when to act." Those words had guided every shot she made, every impossible choice. Now she understood what he had truly meant. The battlefield was never just terrain and targets. It was politics, betrayal, silence and secrets. It was the storm that swirled around the innocent and demanded someone step forward to anchor the line. And now she was that anchor. Directive Horizon wasn't finished. The map proved that. Kane had been one head of a hydra that stretched across nations and governments. Project Helios remained in orbit, its tungsten rods waiting to fall like judgment from the sky. Somewhere in the darkness, other operatives, other cells, were already preparing. Horizon would adapt, recover, and strike again. But they would no longer strike at shadows, because Kelly carried the truth in her hands. As she left the canyon with Briggs, Torres, and Orlov at her side, the sun bled across the desert horizon. Each step was heavy, but her resolve was iron. She had declared war not just with bullets, but with belief that no power, however hidden, could erase the legacy her father had given her. She wasn't fighting for recognition. She wasn't chasing glory. She was carrying the burden passed to her in the final whispered words of a dying man, "Don't let them take it from you." She wouldn't. Every mission from now on would be guided by that vow. Every bullet she chambered, every scope she adjusted, every risk she took would be a continuation of his unfinished fight. Kane had been right about one thing. Killing a man didn't destroy the machine, but it could dismantle a gear, break a cog, stall its momentum. And if Kelly had to spend the rest of her life tearing Horizon apart piece by piece, she would. This story, the one you've just heard, isn't a tale of neat endings. It's a fragment of an ongoing war where the lines blur, where heroes fall, and where the impossible must be attempted because the alternative is surrender. Kelly's journey doesn't close with Kane's death. It expands with every mark on the map, every shadow horizon casts across the world. And that's where we leave her for now, not in peace but in resolve, not victorious but unbroken. Her rifle slung across her back, her father's words echoing like wind through the canyon, Kelly crossed steps forward into the storm. And now, I want to turn to you. You've followed Kelly's story from the first ambush in the desert, through the bitter humiliation in the Armory, the brutal training, the impossible shot that bent physics, the discovery of Project Helios, the drone battles that lit up the sky, and the final bloody showdown with Robert Kane. You've seen what she's lost and what she's willing to carry forward. The question is, what would you do in her place? Would you take up a war that can't be neatly won, knowing it would cost you friends, allies, maybe even your life? Or would you walk away, let the machine grind on, and protect only yourself? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, not just about Kelly, but about what you would choose if the battlefield of secrets and shadows became your fight. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to VeteranBiker. Every week, we bring you stories that aren't just entertainment, but lessons carved in grit, sacrifice, and impossible odds. Hit that button, join the ride, and never miss the next chapter. If this journey gripped you, if Kelly Cross's stand against Horizon left you breathless, then stay with us. On screen right now, you'll see the next videos lined up. Stories that dig just as deep, with battles just as fierce, with warriors who had everything to lose and still stood their ground. Click 1. Keep watching, keep the fire alive, because this is more than a channel. It's a mission, a reminder that even when the odds are stacked, someone, somewhere, will always step forward to take the shot. Thank you for being part of VeteranBiker. Thank you for giving your time to this story. And thank you for carrying it with you into whatever battlefield you face. We'll see you in the next video. Stay sharp, stay ready, and remember, one shot can change everything.